Lakmé Fashion Week Podcast, Episode 4, and we're in conversation with Priya Tanna, Editor-in-Chief of VOGUE India, and SHIVAN Bhatiya and Kukreja of the label SHIVAN Narresh. In this episode, we're talking about the reality of diversity and inclusivity in Indian fashion and media. While discussing progress, diversity and inclusivity have been two words used to communicate change. And while the fashion industry has become more diverse in recent years, it's taken a while to get there. What was the reason for this? Why this sudden acceleration? And have we really moved away from tokenism to a genuine movement? Okay, so thank you all of you for joining us. For me, this is the dream team for this conversation. All of us have been in fashion for several years, and I think that we've used words like inclusivity and diversity incessantly. Priya and I will confess that it's our favorite cover line when we're stuck for a story or we're stuck for words that look really good on a magazine. We do it. But the truth is, up until now, it's not been a true fact. It's been lip service. So before we get into celebrating how wonderful it is that it is a fact, Priya, what took us so long to get here? And you're welcome to throw questions back at me as well.
It's interesting, Nons, but it goes back. Do you remember that exceptionally long flight that you and me were stuck together on? And we decided to swap seats and sit and hang together and chat about our journey thus far. And I still remember you telling me something that I didn't forget, was about how even in India, fashion reacts to all that is going on in our lives. And I've also said this always, that fashion holds a mirror to the times we've lived in and the times we live in, whether it was the war, post-war, whether it was the suffragette movement, whether closer home, it was post-liberalization, Bollywoodization. Fashion's really held that mirror. I think the reason it's taken us this long is because nobody asked and nobody answered. It was such a simple statement. Nobody was questioning the system. For the longest time, we all worked out of a space where certain faces, certain jobs, a certain work environment, all adhered to a cookie cutter syndrome, and that worked for us. Nobody questioned it. What led to this change? Well, it's been a movement, and it's been a global movement. Whether you talk about the millennials who have turned into young activists, I call them this activist generation, because they are so unafraid to speak up and so unafraid to speak out. So whether it is them, whether it is certain exceptional stories that sort of find their way to the surface and become stories that everybody talks about, that push us to do more, be more, think differently, think out of the box. And then, of course, once that movement started gaining momentum, fashion reacted. And today, where we are is the sum total of all that reacting. We've kicked off, we've started, we are on our way.
But in our defense, I mean, maybe it was a very fledgling industry. How old is fashion, right? In 2000, we had our first fashion week. Maybe we needed to follow this journey. Maybe we needed to set standards for what fashion stands for. And I remember being asked at a press conference, why do you only use models for your magazines? And I said, who else will I use? Real people. And I remember at that point, it made perfect sense to me because we were creating the story of fashion. And now I think fashion has maybe sort of become absorbed in our society. Earlier, we stood outside. And I think we enjoyed that status as the girl who stood outside. Would you agree with that? I mean, I think we're more absorbed. I think that we've come to it maybe faster.
We've had no choice, right, Nons? We've really had no choice in that matter. We've had to react, and we've had to react really, really quickly. We heard stories behind brands. We heard stories behind designers. We heard stories behind models. We heard stories behind the people that populate this world and populate our lives. And so many of these stories have propelled us to move in this direction. I still remember, I'll give you an example. When the Nirbhaya case shook the country, and I'm talking about, what was it, 7-8 years back? We all woke up to this realization that as a fashion magazine, we couldn't carry on with all things being same. We needed to react. And for us, it was such an important word when we use the word empower on our cover line. Today, I would never do that because almost every single story that I put into the magazine is one that is intended to empower. So it's literally like a journey, it's a process of understanding what diversity is, what inclusivity is, how the two don't really mean the same thing. You started from a place, and as we are moving forward and as we are moving along, it's becoming more and more organic. From an external place, we are slowly moving towards this internal space where all this becomes a part of our lexicon, a part of our work culture, a part of our lives.
And then 2020 happened, right? And I have to say this, and I've said it in every conversation we've had actually, that globally Vogue reacted in the most incredible manner. And it's why some magazines have more heft and a lot of magazines have disappeared. You all came together and said, what's our storytelling going to be? So not only did you use children, whether it was Vogue Italia and their messages of hope, but February 2021, Vogue India, I think it will be remembered in history for what you all did.
Yeah.
It felt like I was seeing, and I don't know, Shivan and Naresh, if you agree with me, I felt like I was seeing a poster for change. I felt it was a book that I was going to remember for its cover. It didn't feel like a magazine anymore. I have goosebumps when I talk
Yeah,
about it.
me too.
In my entire career, I have never felt this way, not about my work, not about anybody else's work. Yes, the Vogue Italia children's covers were. But this, I stopped and I went, today, we will remember Feb 2021 as the day, the date it all changed. Tell us a little bit about what led to the cover, the making of it. You haven't talked about it enough. That's my big complaint.
I don't talk enough. I prefer doing than talking, and you know that, Nonita. But thank you. It means so much coming from you, and I value your opinions so, so much. So thank you for those kind words. And for me, it's been a personal high and a matter of such pride to be able to put this cover out into the universe. Um, so I think, I want to backtrack a little bit that pretty much before the pandemic, it was interesting. We had a global workshop for all the editors of Vogue, and we felt that our lives were changing rapidly. The world around us was changing rapidly. And none of us were sure that Vogue was armed adequately to address this change. You had all these different fears. You had gimmick, tokenism. How do you truly live up to words and not restrict them at being hashtags? And I think all of us faced that fear. I still remember, we had a 3-day workshop in Paris where all the editors of Vogue got stuck together in a room, and we said, what are the values we want to build this brand on? Yes, for many, many years, it's a legacy brand. It has meant, it's meant the world's most consummate fashion Bible. It's been really all about trends. And of course, it's also been about incredible women and all of that. But that's a different story. So much has changed now. And how do we want to react? And each one of us sort of put our head down to it, and we identified a few goals that we came to term as Vogue values. One of that was sustainability. One of that was inclusivity. One of that was diversity. Then the next question was, these are really heavy weights. These are hefty words. How do you really put these words into action without having that one-off issue that you call the sustainability issue, or a one-off issue that you called the diversity issue, putting a plus size girl on the cover and then saying, I've ticked that box. Then it came down to execution. And we literally had to go back into another workshop back home to identify what it meant for us to go beyond that lip service. And one of the things we came back to is, if we believe in it, we've got to champion it. And if we champion it, we've got to be unafraid of that. And since then, it was on our mind to have a same-sex couple on the cover. And this just seemed like the right time because it coincided with the launch of Condé Nast Studio's new show, the D-Day, the big day, which is our first big Netflix outing. And I said, we should really talk about what is the state of love and the state of marriage all about in this day and age. Growing up, I used to read those India Today surveys. that they used to have those love surveys and sex surveys and all of that. So I was like, is it time for us to understand, to reevaluate and revisit what does love and marriage mean today? And we went on this journey to meet some of the most extraordinary couples and real couples. And then when we met Shruti and Haima, and I believe they'd already done a cover before, but we still completely fell in love with them and their story. And there was so much vulnerability, so much truth, so much beauty, and so much frailty. And we felt like, as a magazine that's run really 85% or 90% by women and it's for women, if we don't stand up to champion them, who will? And from then on, it just took a life of its own. Both were sitting in different parts of the country. We got them together. We got the photographer. We went to Goa. And even then, and I know you know this, that we need to work around credits and cover credits. This image wasn't that at all. But we saw it and we were transported and we felt what they felt. So this became the ideal choice for a cover image. And the rest is history. The truth is we all felt it. It was not planned. It wasn't a gimmick. It wasn't done purposefully. It was just a feeling that all of us as women felt. We felt that love in that image. And then that image became the cover.
It really showed, and I thought the typography was beautiful. And yes, this came from a magazine run by women that empowers women, words we don't like to use. But Shivan and Naresh, both of you, your brand has loved women from day one. And I remember talking to you when you launched, you were talking about getting different machines. You were making clothes for women of all shapes and sizes. It never occurred to you that you were being inclusive or body positive. You were like, we're making these clothes because we like making these clothes. And weirdly enough, it worked on everybody, on every shape and size. I've never felt that I can't wear it or someone else can only wear it. Tell me a little bit about your journey and your thought process about a word that I don't know you acknowledged, or was it just part of your DNA?
I think, Nonita, our journey started when we were both studying in Italy and we wanted to decide, we were very certain we were going to start a brand. We were also very certain that this brand had to be a global brand. We were also very certain that whatever we start, we will come back to India and start, because unless we're not a household name in our own country, we can't be a global name. The only thing that had to be answered was what category of clothing was it going to be? And fortunately for both of us, during our academic years, while studying in India, we had taken part in a lot of international competitions where we had done a lot of categories of clothing, designed a lot of categories of clothing. And amongst many of it, swimsuits was one category that we both had thoroughly enjoyed. So we felt that, okay, swimsuit is a great category. It's a global category that even when we are successful in India, we will step out. The industry outside already exists. Then we will already be a big player from our own country stepping into a global market, and then we're trying to take the brand global. So strategically, it was making sense. The other reason it made sense was also because we both were huge travel buffs. I mean, literally the reason we got into fashion was to travel, because and swimsuits somehow made us do that. And because not only was it allowed us to travel, take inspiration and design a product, but that product also made people travel when they bought it. So for us, in a lot of sense, it was a circle: inspiration to product back to inspiration. This sort of a circular way of doing business and inspiration was something we felt we would do for the rest of our lives, without feeling it.
But were you worried who's going to wear swimsuits?
Yeah,
am I too fat? I mean, most of us, and I'm sure Priya will agree to this, before we get into a pool, we have our towel like this. I mean, 10 years ago, you didn't just lie around by the beach in a bikini.
No, so precisely, I think this is the only thing that we didn't think, we were so driven by passion that we didn't think when we come back, who's going to buy, how are we going to create, how are we going to sell, market. None of these questions for some reason didn't pop. But I do know that as soon as we opened our first little boutique in Hoskaz village in 2009, even before we did a fashion week, because At that point in time, Huskas village was just going through revolution, and the rents were really cheap. So it was the only place we could have afforded like a small little studio where we could hang 10 pieces of swimsuits and just expect someone to walk in. And the first month itself, every woman who has walked in has only complained that my daughter is 13 years old, I'm 35, I've gone through pregnancy, I have stretch marks, I have body scars, I have all these issues, which obviously my daughter does not have. How do you expect me to wear the same style and step out where everybody's going to be seeing me? So we realized from the very nascent stage of the brand, we were not selling fashion. We were only selling body confidence. And we also realized that we were the only brand in the Indian landscape that was selling self-love. And we were not selling a product in order to impress people around you. You didn't care to buy a swimsuit for your girlfriend, for your boyfriend, for your husband, for your relatives. You only cared if you had the courage to face yourself in the mirror wearing that bathing suit. So we were a very self-love brand. And because we were such a self-love brand, we had to make sure that when it came to body sizing, it came to different fits, different body shapes, we had to fit well. I mean, there was really no other choice, because we couldn't have been on a very superficial level to say, oh, we make really fancy bikinis, but if it didn't fit well, nobody's going to buy it. And we weren't trying to sell lehengas and saris under the cover of a swimsuit in order to be sustainable, but on the face showing ourselves as a swimsuit brand. So that's where the education came in. I remember very clearly our academic school in NIF taught us how to do pattern making as per an export house. Big armholes, you give enough room for making alterations in your garment. And that's just how it's taught in India. But we went to Italy, and Shivan was taught by the pattern maker Dolce & Gabbana. La Perla's head designer was his faculty. And when we studied pattern making from that point of view, that how important it is to be too close to the body. Armholes need to be as tiny as possible, so you have functional movement of your arms. All these things all this knowledge is when we came back and applied to Indian body sizing. Now, here's another interesting fact. IIT and NIF have been working on standardizing Indian body type for past 2 decades, and they haven't been able to come out with a scale. But we realized that our brand is not going to be successful if we do not crack this problem. So when we came back, we took all our Italian patterns and we took the Indian patterns, and then we said, okay, fine, we needed to fuse this because Indian body type, essentially, we had smaller torsos, bigger hips, wider bust lines, thinner waist, and it was a completely different body type in compared to a European or an American body type. So even though we might, in terms of sizing, it would be UK 10, UK 12, but that UK 10 sizing does not fit you like a British swimsuit size. It needs to fit you like an Indian swimsuit style. So that's essentially what we did. Come up with our own Indian blocks that were made and designed as per Indian body type, put it under standardized UK sizing so that it's easier for a client who walks in to say, okay, I buy a standard UK 8, UK 10, UK 12, and that's my size in SHIVAN and Naresh. But the fit was not of an American or a European size. It was an Indian body type size. So that's how fit came into being a very effective thing.
But visually also you communicated this. And I think that's really important. Again, I think Priya will agree with me. The first time we saw real women on the ramp, and I don't like the word plus size, I find it ridiculous. Real women on the ramp.
Right.
You used inclusive models. You saw women as they see themselves.
Right.
Like I said, I won't say you're the first, but what made you do this? Because it was very underrepresented in fashion at that point.
I think, Nonita, just so much of love from the women who were supporting the brand. And I say this again, I don't think we could have survived being a swimwear brand in the country had it not been a love brand. If it wasn't supported at the ground level by women, we wouldn't have finished a decade in this country. And sorry, you were saying.
No, it's interesting. Priya uses the term that we react in fashion. Your reply is like we reacted to the love, but I'm going to throw it to you all differently. I think you've been very proactive, whether it's your brand or it's been Vogue. I think you've all been really proactive in both the terms inclusivity and diversity. But I want to ask you a question. I'm going to start with you, Priya. You said this, they're different words, they mean entirely different things. How are we addressing them? Do we even know the difference?
Nonita, I read a beautiful, beautiful quote that has stayed with me that says, diversity is being invited to the party, but inclusivity is being asked to dance. And that is so true. Diversity is extraneous, it is external, it is optics, it is demographics, it is allowing for a wider, wider berth, giving it a wider berth, whether it is size, whether it is skin, whether it is background, whether it is sexuality, it's just being open to it, allowing everybody to the big fashion party. But inclusivity is a measure. Inclusivity is the how. Inclusivity is what happens when you are invited to that party. Are you sitting alone at the table all by yourself? Is somebody coming and asking you how you really feel? Is somebody asking you to a dance? Is somebody telling you, is looking after your well-being? It goes so much more than being this optical concept. It is far more internal. So I think it's again a matter of great pride that Condé Nast India has its own diversity and inclusivity council. And it's actually global, and each country has to nominate members from the company who become representatives of this. And what it really does is it's a mindful reminder from time to time that this can't just be a hashtag. Whether it's choosing people differently to work with us. What is our workplace like? What is the environment there like? I mean, we've all heard enough traumatic tales about working at fashion magazines, and you and I both know how many of them are untrue. So really, at the end of the day, it's a job like any other. Are we hiring differently? Are we hiring people with unique skill sets? Are we hiring people with unique voices? What do they really bring to the table? So that's one aspect, is the workplace and how you hire. The other aspect is, how do I really take it from being a theme, the inclusivity issue, and across my magazine in every way possible, support this, whether it is supporting marginalized designers, whether it is supporting designers from lesser known regions, talking about new talent, whether it is using different kinds of models who have different looks. And like SHIVAN Narresh said, they had a plus size model. For us, it's not just about size, right? It's everything. We've gone age agnostic, we've gone size agnostic, we've gone skin tone agnostic, and we are really putting our money where our mouth is. Then, of course, you want to also represent the country and not restrict yourself to Bombay and Delhi, which does tend to be the greatest mistake most fashion magazines make, is to be a pan-India brand. So we identified the tent poles, and we said, these are the totems we want to hang our content on. So we are ensuring ourselves that it's not just a hashtag.
Boys, let me ask you, you've cast them in fashion shows, they've, appeared in campaigns. Have you ever asked them if they would work with you again? Because I'm taking off from Priya's question, and we had this, again, a millennial researched this, and she was very driven by how were they treated? How did they feel? I wish someone had asked me this in class 8 when I was feeling all awkward and wasn't asked to dance. But, I wish there was a council like the one Condé Nast has. But have you ever asked them if they'd work with you again? Have you done this due diligence?
So we haven't asked at the end of the show if they would work with us again, but I do know that at the end of the show that we do, every model has come around and said, will you please take me next time when I'm doing the show again? Because I've had such a ball doing this for you. I remember our 10th anniversary show that we just did at the Aravali range. We found a small little village. We wanted to make sure there would be 20 women in skimpy swimsuits walking next to in a mountain, surrounded by a village. So we went and spoke to the panchayat and we said that, okay, we're going to shoot tomorrow. The sarpanch of the panchayat, we need your local support because we don't know what kind of a scenario is it going to build tomorrow as these women come and walk out. And the sarpanch said, don't worry. I can't tell you, Nonita, how inspired I was that we talk about educated women and men in cities. These villagers were so much more educated and civilized when it came to respecting women walking in skimpy swimsuits in a village in Aravali's, and they did not take out their phones and do anything strange. So that's the kind of respect I ended up having for the average rural Indian who's out there, that we don't give them enough credit of understanding what it is. Anyways, coming back to the point, at the end of the show, every model that has walked on that show has come around and said, can we please walk again next time when you guys are doing the show? All of these girls were young girls, fresh girls. We made sure we did not even put body makeup on them this time. We wanted to make sure that not only is it plus size or, size 0, but it's also as real as it gets. Because when you're on the beach, you're not putting makeup on your thighs and on your arms. So if there's cellulite, it's okay. Love it. If you have a hanging bust line, it's okay. Let it hang. No problem. That to say something so honestly in fashion is what I feel is a need of the hour today. Because like Priya said, the core values for millennials and Gen Z is much more beyond products. You give a millennial or Gen Z 2 lakh rupees today, they're not interested in buying the next 8 bag or the next shoe. They would much rather spend that money on an experience going on a holiday or, adding some value to somebody else's life with that money. Or even if they spend that money, they'll make sure, is it impacting earth or environment in any way? So their core values have completely changed. And as designers, as brands, if we do not react to that, we will not be a relevant brand within a decade from now. As simple as that.
Absolutely. I don't think you'll be relevant in the next 3 years. I also
Agreed.
noticed that you didn't call any of this out. The information you're giving us about not touching up the skin,
Yeah.
you didn't fetishize it and say, look at us,
Yeah.
And the other thing I've noticed that a lot of the magazines are doing is they're no longer going the dusky issue, plus size, the curvy girl.
Yeah.
They've even stopped saying, how do you girls with curls? Because actually that's just breaking things up when you are trying to integrate everything.
Normalize. Yeah.
But Nonita, there was a point when I think it was important to call it out because people didn't know better. There was a time and place.
That was the stage as well. It was important.
There was that stage where we had to, and you and I both know that words have an impact. Very little other things do, in that sense. So we had to call it out. We had to call them as plus size girls. We had to say, but then we learned as we went along. And that's what I'm saying. I just feel it's been work in progress. And the ones like the boys, the ones who are mindful, the ones who understand this, the ones who know where India is at right now and who it is that they are talking to, the more mindful we are, the more aware we are, the better we will get at this. So we have a global code of conduct that we had to go around sharing with all the modeling agencies we work with in India. And that code of conduct, they had to sign it. And the code of conduct ensured that the models that came to us would be accompanied by chaperones. They were of a certain BMI. We didn't want any of those undersized girls. If at any point they felt uncomfortable or if there was any level of skin issue they were not comfortable with, we wouldn't be shooting them. And, but did this happen historically? No. Did we screw it up a lot before? Yes. But we've picked up somewhere, and I'm hoping that from now on, that journey gets more and more mindful as we go along,
I'm talking to 3 very aware people, and that's why you're here for this conversation. But a lot of the industry has yet to catch up. I mean, recently, we saw something that we'd all forgotten existed, fat tax. What on earth? This is 2021. Fat tax, on top of the fact that most designers don't do anything for curvy women. Would you all like to take this and tell me what is fat tax? Can you explain it to me as designers? I'm still, I'm at a loss for words.
So Nonita, there are two sides to fat tax. One is that the government has been trying to push fat tax on products or foods that actually are not very favorable to health for kids while growing up. So this could be your typical, pizzas, pastas, chips, and all kind of junk food. So there should be some sort of tax on that, so that you kind of making people a bit more aware of what they're putting into their mouths. And the other kind of fat tax is that as designers or as brands, when a woman walks in and she's a UK 18 or a UK 20, and you turn around and say to her, okay, ma'am, I'm sorry, but you don't really fit into any of the standardized sizes. We will actually charge you a bit extra and then make this piece for you. In the designer terms, that is fat tax, that you're actually being asked to pay extra only because you are a certain shape or a certain size. This is what needs to change, I feel, and the corrective course here to take is that whenever, as a designer, you do your business strategy of pricing, you always base it on some sort of an average sizing. Because, and in a typical sense, in any fashion brand, your average sizing is done as per UK 8, which is some brands call it an extra small, some brands call it a small. So you always count two sizes below, 3 sizes above. And so you'll go from 8 to 10 to 12 to maximum 14. And from an 8, UK 8, you'll drop down to a 6 or maybe a 4. And the aggregate of that is how you do your pricing, based on the fabric that went in, the production was done, and hence you have an MRP that's assigned to this. Now, if as designers, we shift this UK 8 to a UK 12 to be our average sizing, because we know that real women mostly will fit into a UK 10 or a UK 12. And now if I do my pricing as per that, I actually push my size bracket to as much as UK 20, and I'm still covering as much as UK 6. This is a more realistic pricing, and I don't have to unnecessarily tax or unnecessarily pay, make a woman who walks into my store pay higher just because she's a UK 18 or 20. This is a practical way of avoiding fat tax or addressing this issue. And I feel we do it. It's something I have to say that we did not do this before, but starting 2020, we adapted to this new change. And we have pushed our average sizing from UK 8 to a UK 10 and 12 now. So we now stretch ourselves to as much as UK 18 and 20. But this is something all Indian fashion or all fashion brands across the world need to do.
What made you change this in 2020? It wasn't the fact that Diet Sabya called it out, right? You did it before. What happened to you internally where you went, there's business
In
sense for this?
Analytics, Nonita, because in 2020, there was ample time when there was literally no business, that you were only analyzing your business that you've done in the last decade. And all the numbers showed us that as much of designing and thought process that we put into an extra small bathing suit, what actually sells the most is a medium or a large, or a UK 10 or a 12. So if you know that's your main crunch of business, where it comes from, it's very foolish for you to turn around and say one size up, you will start charging a customization to a client, when that means that's that much more business waiting to come into your kitty. You just have to become smart and shift your size focus from 8 to 10 or 10 to 12. So it was purely logical to do something like this.
So it's also purely logical, and there are facts and numbers, but I'm not quoting them. It's also purely logical to know that older women spend more than younger women. And yet, Priya, we have never put, I remember when I put Indira Varma on the cover, she actually posted saying, Bazaar has put a 47-year-old woman on the cover, and we got bravo, bravo. And I'm thinking, have you seen yourself? We're lucky to get you, and how beautiful are you? But let's talk about ageism. I mean, I might be the only person in this conversation who's over 50, but maybe I can get the vaccination. But what on earth? It's again a kind of being invisible. Why do we find it so easy to make people invisible? If at the moment we're embracing gender and sexuality, we've decided to ignore age. I mean, at every spectrum, we're dropping the ball, Priya. Why do you think that is? Not as a magazine person, but someone who's also a bit of a social chronicler, anthropologist. I know that you have a keen eye for how people think and behave. Put away your magazine editor hat.
I've always felt that people have always put a premium on youth for some reason. And had I not entered my 40s, I might have been guilty of not knowing better. I think till you don't cross that journey, and Nonita, you and I can both say that as one grows older, one may not always know what one wants, but one always knows what one doesn't want. And with that comes a certain amount of wisdom. And I feel personally, again, it was a bracket that was restricted to tokenism. I still remember in Bollywood, and here I feel Bollywood had a big role to play. You had all your gloriously gorgeous women like Shabana Azmi, who were restricted to certain strong art cinema roles, indie cinema roles, the older piano teacher roles. And somebody needed to come and break that stereotype. Somebody needed to come and change that game. And I feel Bollywood, in its interesting way, has opened that door a bit. I mean, I can't tell you the thrill of putting a Jaya Bachchan on my cover. I can't tell you the thrill of putting a Sridevi on my cover. I can't tell you the thrill of watching an Oprah Winfrey on the cover of an Indian magazine. And I feel these were important moments that are, again, opening our eyes to being age agnostic. I mean, I saw Anamika's campaign and she's featured an older woman. I mean, it's something that is not unusual on the international runways. If you've seen a Lagerfelder, if you've seen JioSaavn, or if you've seen a Miu Miu, they've always brought back the older, the supers. You've had Elon Musk's mum. You've had her. You've had Jane Fonda. You've had Helen Mirren.
Yeah.
You've had Helen Mirren. You've had Jane Fonda. You've had Nigella. You've had a whole bunch of 40 and 45 plus women, more gorgeous and more glorious than they've ever been in their youth, gracing magazine covers. It's taken us a long time to even come this far. Like I'm saying, I think we've been a bit late to the party that already started elsewhere. We are now getting invited to it, and it's important and critical what we do with our invitation.
What do you feel now that you've got the invitation? How do you RSVP, Shivan, Naresh? What are you going to say as designers, as people who create desirable clothes and desirable imagery as well?
I feel, Nonita, that you're right, absolutely right, that ageism is now the next thing that has to be we have to put spotlight on it. And I also feel that the reason why topics of diversity, inclusivity, ageism were not so relevant 10 years before was also because that was also the time when social media came in. And it literally came in as a completely new medium where as platforms, whether as designers or as magazines, we weren't deciding trends anymore. We were not at the pinnacle of the pyramid anymore. It was actually people who started to decide trends. And because everybody was just coming out and saying, here, look at me, I'm super thin, but this is what I have to say. I'm a regular girl, but this is what I have to say. I'm a dark-skinned guy, but this is what I have to say. So when all these people step out and start to say what they feel like saying, our ideology shifts now, or let's say our aim shifts. And I think as our aim as designers and as magazines today is not to make trends anymore, is actually to just give open platform to these voices. As simple as that, because we're, like Priya said, we have to be reflective of the society that we are in today. So as and how more and more older women come out as huge icons of just being truly to themselves, we should be out there already ready to recognize them and put them on the spot and put them on the platform and let them shine. And I think that's what we need to do. I don't think we need to push and put an older woman there just to put a spotlight on her when she's not ready. But it just has to be give the platform to the one who's ready and who's asking to be given a platform. And that's all we should do.
Yeah, I mean, Nonita, Nina Gupta, I'm going to say just one word.
So true.
If you saw that show, and I was telling Miss Abba, you were completely hidden and overtaken and overthrown by her. How resplendent is that woman? I have the hugest crush on her.
Listen,
What a sex bomb.
her Instagram handle is hysterical.
Yeah.
I just wish that we would not use terms like the grannies of Instagram.
Exactly.
I'm like,
In fact, Nonita, if you
Cougar.
remember,
Cougar. Grey
it
hair,
was-
silver fox. I mean, what
it was
the hell
Nina
is that?
Auntie. If you remember Nina Auntie's tweet that became a turning point for her career when she said that I don't have work, I'm an older woman. That's the moment I'm talking about. This is when older women using social media to stand out and
By the way,
becoming icons.
The other thing is Naresh helped her start the Instagram account in Goa. We were
No
sitting and
way.
having lunch, and you know, we were just. She's like, "How do you do?" And I said, "How are you not on it?" And Naresh said, "Wait, I'll just set up an account for you."
So as soon as exactly like that, when women are talking, let them take the center stage and give them that platform. And that's exactly what Nina Auntie did. And I'm so glad for her that she ended up being a voice to so many older women who now do something what she showed us needs to be done with social media. Put your voice out there. You have everybody's listening.
Even a Milind Soman's mom. I mean, we
Oh
all
my
know
God,
he runs,
yeah.
but look at her running.
yeah.
What an inspiration. I mean, let's not forget, this is the country of Rekha. This is the country of Dimple. I mean, just talking about them gives me goosebumps. This is the country where some of the most gorgeous women are. This is the country of a Shobha Day who still rocks it in a one-shoulder gown. And she's, God knows, 60 plus, and she's like the biggest fox I've seen. So, you know, we have such great role models. We've just got to go out there and champion them and find them.
So what I'm listening is that hopefully we're heading to a kinder world. Would you agree? And this is my last question, so take it individually. And will this kindness, you think, extend to the last bastion of inclusivity, diversity, and maybe step up to maybe include disability as well?
Yes.
Priya, you want to go first?
Well, I honestly feel like we have our work cut out for us. I feel we've come thus far. I'm very proud of where we are. I feel we've made some powerful strides in this area, and we've been quick to respond, react, and incorporate. I think social media, like Shivan said, has played a really big role in that. And when you see all these incredible stories out there, it's hard to not react and adapt them. But we have our work cut out for us. A lot of it is work in progress. I think what's going to be important is for us to do away with this cancel culture. We still have what is called as this cancel culture, where we are dismissive, where we are hateful, where we are angry, where we are very easy to throw someone out of that party. You can't sit with us. I think that needs to be done away with. And I think it rests upon all of us, right? No, it's about the conversations you're having. I mean, I don't think I would have ever been invited to talk about sustainability and inclusivity and diversity when Vogue was launched. And there you are having this really powerful conversation. And for designers like Shivan and Naresh, who stuck to what they know best and do best. And they didn't let the fact that at that point of time, swimsuits were quite the novel thing to come out of India. They stuck to their guns, and they found a tribe of women that, you know, celebrate them as they celebrate them. So I feel like all of us have our work cut out for us. And the truth here is to not let the ball drop, to not keep it to a hashtag, and to be really, really mindful of it. And as a woman, I can only tell you, Nonita, that magic happens when women come together. And I think we need more women coming together to champion each other for things like this to stick.
Shivan and Naresh, both of you.
I feel like skills stand out. Disability or ability is only when somebody has a skill, it'll shine. And I remember literally the day before telling my HR manager, I said, please hire more women tailor. I need them on my floor. I need them to be making swimsuits for us, because it has to be a absolutely equal sort of workforce that I hire. I remember about 4-5 years back, and I haven't done anything about it. I feel bad now that this conversation is starting. I want to hire eunuchs because I feel like they've got the power of a male and a female together. I now I feel like, with this conversation, I feel like I should go out and hunt for the talent who's out there, who can be honed and skilled and made to give some work. And there's just so much to do. Honestly, it's just the ball's been rolling, and we need to catch on. We need to do so much more.
I agree. I think we have to understand that our roles in societies today, for the grace of God, what we have been gifted and where we sit, wherever we sit, respectively in our own positions, is that increasingly more and more become reactionary, it's good to be that platform where you can mirror change in society. And it's no longer the time where you push your views on your demographic, but actually just reflect their views back at them. And if you can understand this paradigm shift in what the world is now today, then you are only going to make this much, much bigger, and your pool and your universe is going to be much larger for you to grow. And that's what the world needs. The world needs it to be just a more cozier and a warmer place for everybody to be a part of, and everybody to say what they feel like saying.
Priya, Shivan, Naresh, thank you so much for being part of this conversation. During our research, we also came across a quote that Priya used, and I'd like to end this conversation with that. If diversity is being asked to the party, then inclusion is being asked to dance. Thank you so much.